You're watching live coverage from RJD News. Thank you for contributions from viewers like you.
Today, Democrats on the House Oversight Committee set a Monday deadline for the White House to turn over documents related to security clearances. There are new questions about how the president's son-in-law got his top-secret clearance.
President Trump appears to be walking back comments he made regarding Kim Jong-un and American college student Otto Warmbier.
Good morning, Buffalo and the world. I am Rashid James with the Rashid Day channel, and you are watching RJD News this morning. Thank you for joining us for another episode of RJD News this morning. We have a lot of things coming your way. Kim Jong-un and Trump had their second summit ever, and they did not come out with a deal, which is a thing that is being debated on and how it could affect our country and their country. Some believe that it was the perfect thing to do, and some don't. He walked away from the deal, and we're just going to talk about that. Also, Trump has been criticized of giving his son-in-law security clearance that is unauthorized. So, we have a lot of things coming your way. RJD News begins right now. Good morning, breaking news. President Trump and dictator Kim Jong-un has had their second summit and meeting in Vietnam. They talked about things, about sanctions and denuclearization, and how Kim Jong-un wants all sanctions taken off of his country from the U.S., and we want them to denuclearize. In both summits, they were not able to come with a deal. And this time, Trump decided to walk away from the deal. This is the thing that we're going to talk about. Many people are debating over if it was right for him to walk away, or if it was wrong for him to walk away. I believe, personally, it was good that he walked away, because we were not going to take sanctions off of the country. Why should we take sanctions off the country? We need to be protected, or we need to keep watch of this country, because it is possible they are still a threat. But you remember, this is a guy who used to threaten us not so long ago. He threatened us with nuking us with huge amounts of force. And now we've come to some sort of agreement. Not nearly an agreement, but we come to some sort of substantial agreement, and we're not sure what he wants or what the president wants. So, if there comes up to be another one, we will see. Here is the news story.
All right, as we can continue our coverage live, we're in Vietnam, where earlier today the president wrapped up his second summit with North Korea's Kim Jong-un. Following the summit, we exclusively had the opportunity to speak with the president before he departed Vietnam. Here's part one of that interview. Mr. President, great to see you.
Thank you very much.
Summit number two, when I heard Kim Jong-un say, was asked the question, are you ready to denuclearize? His answer was, I wouldn't be here. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. And then he goes on, and you said that might be the best answer you've ever heard.
Well, and we're working towards something, but we didn't sign anything today. It didn't quite work out. I would say that I wasn't satisfied, and perhaps he wasn't satisfied. Good relationship, but I decided that this wasn't the right time to sign something. So we'll see what happens over a period of time.
It's funny, it came up on the radio show. We've known each other well over 2 decades.
Yeah.
The art of the deal. One of the key components in the book is you say you always got to be able to walk up to the last second.
Yeah.
Reagan, Reykjavik.
Well, whether it's Reagan, whether it's anybody, I mean, you have to be prepared to walk, and this just wouldn't have been good for our country. And frankly, he can look at it the same way. Maybe he can look at it the same way. But we get along really well. He's a different kind of a guy, and I just said, look, this isn't going to be working. So I have a feeling something down the line will happen, and it'll happen. It'll be good. But
and
this
that
just
was
wasn't
your choice. Good. You said this isn't the deal.
Well, let's go with both. Let's go with both. I don't want to say it was my choice. It was something that he wanted to do and I didn't want to do it, and I just don't think it would have been good, maybe for either of us. But we'll get something worked out eventually.
Can you give us any insight into where maybe the sticking point was?
Well, they wanted to denuke certain areas, and I wanted everything. And the sanctions are there, and I didn't want to give up the sanctions unless we had a real program. And they're not ready for that, and I understand that fully. I really do. I mean, they spent a lot of time building it, and that doesn't mean the world has to be happy. But I wanted them to denuke, and they wouldn't do the full. They wanted to do some, and I guess a lot of people would have said that's a great start, but I just didn't feel it was right.
Let me ask you about, last night you said, he said something at dinner, and I won't say it, I'll let him say it. Can you bring us into that dinner?
Well, no, I just think he's, first of all, he's a character.
He was laughing about it.
He's a real personality, and he's very smart. He's sharp as you can be, and he's a real leader, and he's pretty mercurial. I don't say that necessarily in a bad way, but he's a pretty mercurial guy. But he was talking to the press a little bit, and, you know, he's not big into talking to the press, but the press came in. Look, bottom line, I think he wants to get something done, but this wasn't the right time. And Vietnam, Hanoi, where we are right now, they have treated us so fantastically, so good. They've done such a great job. They're very proud of the job they've done, and they've really treated us. I mean, it's been an incredible 2.5 days.
You kept saying, and managing expectations, you said, I'm in no rush. I want the right deal. And the right deal for you is complete denuclearization that is verified and on-site inspections on demand.
It's a much tougher deal to make. Maybe it won't get made, but that's the deal that we should have. And you can't give up everything if you don't get that. And we could have done large portions, but you're not getting that. So we'll see what happens. Again, the relationship is very good. He likes me. I like him. Some people say, oh, you shouldn't like him. I said, why shouldn't I like him? I like him. Get along great. We'll see what happens.
Let me ask you about, let's go back to Singapore, where I had an opportunity to see you there.
Right.
And hostages were released.
Right.
Remains have come home.
Right.
And the interesting and most profound part of it was that no rockets have been fired over Japan.
That's
Guam's
right.
not threatened.
That's right.
And the continental United States was being threatened. Progress in that area?
A lot of progress, and it's a lot of progress, not necessarily on paper, although we actually signed a very good agreement. It said no denuclearization. You know, we're going to have a complete denuke. I call it denuking, but it's denuclearization. And it was a document that was signed, and it was a very good document. The fact is that he also said he's not going to do testing, and he said that recently. And he said it again to me just a little while ago. He doesn't want to do testing. He's not going to do that. That's a big thing. No rockets, no anything. And I believe, you know, when he tells me that, I will take him at his word. But we'll see how it all goes. I think we had a very good 2 days, but I just don't think maybe either of us were ready.
All right, we're still talking about President Trump. In the case of Otto Warmbier was a college student at Virginia State University, and he visited North Korea in 2017. He left there, and I mean, he did not leave there. He went there, and he was visiting, you know, seeing the sights, and he stole a political paper, it was a political poster, and he was arrested and tried for multiple years of hard labor. And last year in 2018, he was released with some damage to his brain. He cannot speak, but he was conscious. He was brain dead, and he died a few days afterwards. His parents are still seeking justice for what happened to their son, and they're still figuring out how it happened and if Kim Jong-un was a part of all of it.
On Twitter Friday, the president wrote, quote, I never like being misinterpreted, but especially when it comes to Otto Warmbier and his great family. Remember, I got Otto out along with 3 others. The previous administration did nothing, and he was taken on their watch. Of course, I hold North Korea responsible for Otto's mistreatment and death. Most important, Otto Warmbier will not have died in vain. Warmbier was an American college student who was imprisoned in North Korea and died days after being returned to the U.S. The president's tweets come after he made these remarks at a press conference Thursday following his summit with Kim Jong-un.
I don't believe that he would have allowed that to happen. It just wasn't to his advantage to allow that to happen. Those prisons are rough. They're rough places, and bad things happened. But I really don't believe that he was... I don't believe he knew about it.
Did he tell you that he did not, did Kim Jong-un tell you?
He felt badly about it. I did speak to him. He felt very badly. He knew the case very well, but he knew it later. And, you know, you got a lot of people, big country, a lot of people. And in those prisons and those camps, you have a lot of people. And some really bad things happened to Otto. Some really, really bad things.
Why are you
But he tells me that he didn't know about it.
and I will take him at his word.
Still talking about Trump and the conspiracy surrounding him and his son-in-law. His daughter Ivanka said that her husband has nothing to do or did not have any security clearance of being inside of a room with classified information, and this is what Trump is being convicted of. And they said that he gave his son-in-law clearance, high security clearance, in the White House to be searching through classified files, and that could be a criminal offense, and it could also be treason. Sorry, but here is the story.
Today, Democrats on the House Oversight Committee set a Monday deadline for the White House to turn over documents related to security clearances. There are new questions about how the president's son-in-law got his top secret clearance. Paula Reed's following this.
Senior White House advisor Jared Kushner has been touring the Middle East this week to promote the administration's peace initiative.
I think what the people want is they want a government that doesn't have corruption.
But back at home, the president's son-in-law faces allegations of nepotism. The New York Times reports President Trump ordered former Chief of Staff John Kelly to upgrade Kushner's security clearance from interim to top secret last May, over the objections of Kelly, intelligence officials, and former White House counsel Don McGahn. In January, the president denied any involvement in the process.
I don't want to get involved in that stuff.
White House officials told CBS News last year there were concerns that Kushner was naive and being tricked by foreign governments. And Kushner was forced to update his federal disclosure form dozens of times to add foreign contacts, including a 2016 meeting with a Russian lawyer at Trump Tower and conversations with then Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak. Democratic Representative Raja Krishnamurthy accuses Kushner of using his influence to help his real estate business.
He has tremendous financial vulnerabilities, including 666 Fifth Avenue, which is deeply in debt. He's going around the world seeking investments into that property.
In a letter today, the House Oversight Committee demanded information about the security clearance process be turned over by Monday.
This goes beyond partisanship. This is about national security.
Paula, the president also continued his attacks on his former attorney, Michael Cohen, today. Tell us about that.
That's right. He lashed out at Cohen on Twitter, trying to discredit his blockbuster testimony earlier in the week. And next week, Washington will once again be on high alert for a final report from special counsel Robert Mueller. But Cohen's testimony suggests the president's legal problems have extended far beyond the Russia probe.
Thanks.
Our last story tonight is about Osama bin Laden's son. Osama bin Laden's son has been threatening the U.S., trying to justify his father's death. He wants to seek revenge for his father's death, and we don't know what can come upon these threats. And he is now a threat to the United States. Also, just a fact, his wife is one of the 9 hijackers' daughter. So here's the story, and goodbye.
And this morning on Fox and Friends, Rob O'Neill, the former Navy SEAL who killed Osama bin Laden, sounded off on concerns that al-Qaeda and ISIS could be working to form an alliance.
They're rivals, but they're looking about. There are secret talks going on right now with couriers trying to talk to each other to see who's who. Because ISIS is starting to get squeezed now in Raqqa. They're losing Mosul. They're going to either need to get back into the desert and hide out there, or wherever they can get. There's a better safe haven for them in Pakistan, which is where Al-Qaeda is pretty much. Well, I mean, they're in 20 countries right now, but a lot of them are in Syria, a lot of them are in Pakistan. It's like nailing Jello to the wall. You know, it's like it's going to fall off.
By the way, we'll have Rob O'Neill on, the Fox News specialist, in a week And then we'll talk to him further about this. And what do you think, Eric? It's almost as if having Osama bin Laden for a father makes you a little bit of a messed up kid.
Yeah, your legacy. But here's, and this is where I kind of get in a lot of heat with fellow conservatives. I don't think we should be fighting all these wars. I'm not in favor of all these things. Right, we agree on this, because here's what happens. It goes from the Taliban to Al-Qaeda, then all of a sudden this shiny thing over here is ISIS, and everyone runs over there. They're paid to fight. As Rob O'Neill points out, we start pushing them back in Raqqa, their headquarters. We start pushing them back out of Mosul, and then they're going to go on to the next ISIS
nailing Jello to the wall is the perfect way of
terror
describing
group.
it.
So the point is, you really have to pick the fight you want to fight, not spread ourselves across 4 or 5 or 6 battlefields.
And isn't that the problem, though, Eric? Is that they don't exist in isolation, and unfortunately, we have to go back to invading these areas, which whether you think it was a mistake or not, personally, obviously, I do. I think we all agree it should have never happened, but it did happen, right? So ultimately, our men and women, our armed forces are over there. They're responsible now. Their lives are at stake, and I just want something that's going to make sense for them at this point. And so I'm really concerned about pulling out.
Do you agree with this, or do you want to go out, get in there and go after the son?
You know what, I understand your point, Eric, but we don't want to be spread too thin. But on the other hand, radical Islamic terrorism is the driving force behind the refugee crisis. And so if we sit back and we don't address, let's say, Boko Haram, who pledged allegiance to ISIS several years ago, then we're not going to fix their refugee crisis. Boko Haram alone has displaced over 2 million Nigerians. And then look at all the millions of refugees coming out of Iraq and Syria. We have to address it for their own safety, innocent civilian safety, but then also we're going to keep having this horrific refugee crisis on our hands. And so collectively, the United States and NATO needs to come together and really destroy all forms of radical Islamic terrorism and all the splinter groups, not just ISIS, but Al-Shabaab, Al-Nusra, the list is long.
But people will be on our side and they're not on our side, and everything flips around, and we have enemies, we're fighting our other enemies. I mean, David, it's not really that simple, is it?
It's why we need our border to be secure, so we know who's coming in, so we know what they're bringing into this country, and it's why what the Democrats are doing with the FBI director and their language is so dangerous to our country. How did we learn about this intelligence? From the lead al-Qaeda person at the FBI. A leaderless FBI puts us in a danger that they don't have a leader, making sure we're focused on getting counterterrorism information and keeping our country safe. And that's why what the Democrats are doing is so dangerous.